Captain Tay Bin stood on the bridge of the horizon's edge and watched the stars blur past. He had been in space for 15 years, but this view never got old. His ship was one of humanity's first diplomatic vessels, sent to explore the Galactic Coalition and make friends among the stars. The coalition was huge. 847 different species, thousands of worlds, and more cultures than Tai could count. When humanity first made contact 3 years ago, everyone was excited. Humans were finally part of something bigger. They were no longer alone in the universe. But then the tests came. The coalition needed to understand humans, to know what kind of world had created them. Scientists studied Earth's gravity, atmosphere, weather, and wildlife. They ran the data through their systems and waited for results. When the results came back, everything changed. Earth was classified as a Class 12 death world. Only 15 planets in the entire known galaxy had that rating. Most coalition species came from gentle worlds with stable weather, light gravity, and peaceful evolution. Earth was the opposite. High gravity, extreme weather, dangerous predators, and deadly diseases had shaped every living thing on the planet. The coalition was terrified of humans. They saw humans as monsters from a nightmare world. They were too strong, too tough, too aggressive. Human bones could withstand forces that would shatter most alien skeletons. Human immune systems fought off diseases that would kill other species in hours. Humans could heal from injuries that would be fatal to others. Dr. Hanako walked onto the bridge carrying a data pad. She was the ship's chief medical officer and xenobiologist. Her dark eyes were bright with curiosity as always. "Captain, we just received an interesting transmission from Coalition Medical Command." "What is it?" Tay asked. "They want me to give a presentation on human biology," Hana said. "Specifically, how humans survive injuries that would kill most species." Tay smiled. "Are they still scared of us?" "Terrified," Hana admitted. "Last week, Lieutenant Wu accidentally broke a chair just by sitting on it. It was designed for species from normal gravity worlds. The ambassador from Keyleth fainted when she saw it happen." Lieutenant Wu Day, who was standing nearby monitoring security systems, looked embarrassed. He was a quiet man who took his duties seriously. "I apologized for that," he said softly. Nayon, the communications specialist, laughed from her station. She was always cheerful, even when dealing with difficult alien diplomats. "You should have seen the message logs after that incident. Half the coalition thinks we're going to accidentally break their space stations just by walking around." Before Tay could respond, the ship's alert system activated. Na Yeon's smile disappeared as she focused on her screens. "Captain, we're receiving an emergency distress signal. It's from a Velothi colony ship." "Velothi?" Hana moved closer, interested. "I've read about them. They're crystalline beings from a moon called Velath Prime. Very intelligent, very advanced in mathematics and art. Very fragile, too," Nayon added, her fingers flying across her console. "Their ship's life support is failing. They have 12,000 civilians on board, including children. They're saying everyone will die within 18 hours. Tay felt his chest tighten. 12,000 lives. "What's their location?" "Sector 793, Nayon replied. "That's the bad part. They're in the middle of an asteroid field with heavy radiation storms and gravitational anomalies. Coalition Command says the nearest Coalition rescue ship would need 3 weeks to navigate safely through that sector." "3 weeks?" Wu said quietly. "They'll all be dead." Hana was already pulling up information about the Velothi on her data pad. What she read made her face go pale. "Captain, the Velothi are even more fragile than I thought. Their bone structures shatter under 0.8 gravity. They need a very precise atmospheric composition. If the mix is off by even 0.3%, they die. Temperature shifts of more than 2 degrees can kill them, and their immune systems can't handle any foreign bacteria." So they're the most vulnerable species in the coalition, Tay said. Basically, yes. Hana looked up at him. Captain, if we go help them, we could accidentally kill them just by being near them. Human body temperature is too hot for them. We carry billions of bacteria that would be deadly to them. Even our breath could contaminate their environment. Na Yeon was listening to more transmissions. Coalition Command is debating what to do. Most ambassadors are saying it's tragic, but there's no way to save them. A few are suggesting we try, but others are arguing that sending a human ship would be worse than doing nothing. Tay thought about his years in rescue operations before joining the diplomatic service. He had pulled people from burning buildings, from collapsed mines, from sinking ships. He knew what it meant to run toward danger while others ran away. How long would it take us to reach them? At maximum speed, through the hazards? Na Yeon calculated quickly. 36 hours if we push the engines hard and navigate the direct route through the asteroid field. The route that would kill most coalition species, Wu observed. Yes, Na Yeon confirmed. The acceleration alone would hospitalize most aliens. The radiation would be fatal to 90% of known species. And manual navigation through those asteroids requires reflexes faster than most species possess. Tay looked at his crew. Hana was thinking, her mind already working on solutions. Wu stood ready, patient and steady as always. Na Yeon waited for his decision, trust clear in her eyes. These were good people, brave people. People who had signed up to explore the stars and help others. Can we create isolated environments for them? Tai asked Hana. Clean rooms with their specific atmosphere? Hana nodded slowly. Maybe. We'd need to sterilize everything, create airtight chambers with precise environmental controls, use remote handling equipment so we never touch them directly, work in full contamination suits. Even one mistake would be fatal for them. But it's possible? It's possible, Hana admitted. But Captain, the risk is that 12,000 people die if we don't try. Tay interrupted gently. Na Yeon, open a channel to Coalition Command. A moment later, a Coalition administrator appeared on the screen. The alien looked stressed, its skin color shifting to show distress. Human vessel. We cannot authorize this rescue attempt. The danger to both you and the Velothi is too great. I'm not asking for authorization, Tay said calmly. I'm informing you that we're going. We can reach them in time. We can survive the journey. And Dr. Ko believes she can create safe environments for the Velothi. But you're Deathworlders, the administrator protested. You're too strong, too hot, too contaminated. You'll kill them. Or we'll save them, Tay replied. We have 36 hours to figure out how. Horizon's Edge out. He turned to his crew as the channel closed. Hana, start designing those clean rooms. Wu, I want security teams ready to help with the transfer operations. Everyone needs to know how fragile these people are. Na Yeon, plot the fastest course and warn the crew we're going to maximum acceleration. Yes, sir, they said together. As the Horizon's Edge changed course and began to accelerate, Tai looked out at the stars again. Somewhere out there, 12,000 Velothi waited for death. They didn't know yet that help was coming. They didn't know that the monsters from the death world were racing through the darkness to save them. Tai hoped they could prove that being from a nightmare world didn't make you a monster. Sometimes it just meant you were strong enough to protect those who weren't. The journey to the Velothi colony ship was brutal. Captain Tae Bin felt the ship shake and groan as they pushed through 6-gravity acceleration. His body felt heavy, like someone had piled weights on his chest. Breathing took effort. Moving required concentration. Most coalition species would have passed out or died from this kind of stress. Humans just endured it. On the bridge, Na Yeon kept her hands steady on the navigation controls, even though her arms felt like lead. Asteroid field in 2 minutes, she reported. Her voice was strained but calm. Dr. Hanako worked in the medical bay, converting cargo holds into clean rooms. Every surface had to be perfectly sterilized. She programmed the environmental systems to create the exact atmosphere the Velothi needed. The temperature had to be precise. The air mixture had to be perfect. One mistake and the Velothi would die. Her hands shook from exhaustion, but she kept working, 72 hours without sleep. Her eyes burned and her head pounded, but 12,000 lives depended on getting this right. Lieutenant Wu Day supervised his security teams as they prepared for the transfer operations. The teams practiced moving in their bulky contamination suits. The suits would protect the Velothi from human bacteria and body heat, but they were awkward and uncomfortable. "Remember," Wu told his teams quietly, "we never touched them directly. Even through the suits, our body heat could hurt them. Use the remote handling equipment, move slowly and carefully, treat them like they're made of glass." "Because they basically are," one team member muttered. The horizon's edge entered the asteroid field, and suddenly everything got worse. Alarms blared as massive rocks tumbled through space around them. Nayeon's fingers flew across her controls, guiding the ship through gaps that seemed impossibly small. A coalition ship would have slowed down, taken the safe route, used automated systems. Nayeon did it manually at high speed, her human reflexes fast enough to react to dangers that appeared with only seconds of warning. Asteroids passed close enough to scrape the shields. Radiation warnings flashed red across every screen. "Hull temperature rising," someone reported. "Radiation exposure at dangerous levels." "Keep going," Tay ordered. He felt the radiation like a weight on his bones. But humans could survive doses that would kill most aliens instantly. They would deal with the consequences later. Right now, speed mattered more than safety. 20 hours into the journey, they picked up another signal. A cargo ship called the Iron Will had also heard the distress call and was racing to help. Its captain, a gruff man named Jin Hak, appeared on their communication screen. "Heard you Deathworlders were doing something crazy," Jin Hak said. He had a scarred face and tired eyes. "Figured you could use help. I'm carrying experimental medical supplies that might stabilize the Velothi." "Can you keep up?" Tay asked. Jin Hak smiled grimly. "I hauled military supplies through war zones for 10 years. I can keep up." When they finally reached the Velothi colony ship, the sight made Hana's heart sink. The vessel was beautiful, made of crystalline materials that caught the light in rainbow colors. But it was also dying. Hull breaches leaked atmosphere into space. Power fluctuations made the lights flicker. Parts of the ship were already dark and cold. "Life support is failing in multiple sections," Nayeon reported. "Some areas have less than an hour of breathable atmosphere left." The Velothi themselves appeared on the communication screen, and Hana understood immediately why everyone called them fragile. They looked like living crystal sculptures, delicate and beautiful. Their bodies refracted light, creating gentle rainbows. They moved slowly, carefully, as if even their own movements might break them. The Velothi elder speaking to them seemed terrified. Its voice came through the translator sounding like wind chimes. "You are humans? From the Death World?" "We're here to help," Tay said gently. "But you are monsters. Your world is nightmare." "You will kill us." "We're going to save you," Hana interrupted, her voice firm but kind. "I've prepared special environments for you. We'll be very careful, I promise." The transfer operation began. Wu led teams into the dying ship, all of them moving in slow motion in their contamination suits. The Velothi watched them with obvious fear, pressing themselves against walls as the huge humans carefully approached. The first group of 50 Velothi were transferred to the clean rooms Hana had prepared. She monitored every sensor, adjusting temperature and atmosphere in real time. The Velothi survived the transfer. Hana felt relief wash over her, but there was no time to celebrate. 11,950 to go. The work continued for hours. Team after team entered the dying ship, gathered Velothi, and brought them to safety. The humans moved with a gentleness that seemed impossible for beings so large and strong. They used remote equipment to lift the Velothi, never making direct contact, always careful of their own body heat. Nayeon worked at communications, learning the Velothi language patterns, speaking to the terrified civilians. "It's okay," she told them again and again. "We know you're scared. We know we look frightening, but we're not going to hurt you. Please trust us." Some Velothi were too afraid to move. Others were injured or sick. Hana treated them remotely, using equipment that let her work without entering the clean rooms. She studied Velothi physiology in real time, learning as she worked, adapting human medical knowledge to these alien bodies. Jin Hak and his crew worked alongside them, bringing supplies, helping with the transfers, their cargo ship making trips back and forth. Then came the worst crisis. A massive structural failure threatened to collapse an entire section of the Velothi ship. 300 Velothi children were trapped inside. The section would depressurize in minutes. "I'm going in," Wu said immediately. "It's not safe," Tae warned. "It never was," Wu replied, and entered the collapsing section. What happened next became legend in the Galactic Coalition. Wu and his team moved through a section that was tearing itself apart. Explosive decompression ripped at their suits. Structural beams collapsed around them. They carried Velothi children in protective containers, their bodies absorbing impacts and radiation that would have killed any coalition species. But there wasn't enough time. The final group of 50 children were trapped behind a bulkhead that was collapsing. The doorway was jamming shut. Tae made a decision. He entered the section himself and placed his hands against the collapsing bulkhead. He pushed, forcing it to stay open, feeling metal grind against his contamination suit. His muscles screamed. His bones creaked. Medical alarms on his suit went crazy, warning that he was exceeding safe stress limits. "Captain, you need to let go." Hana's voice came through his helmet. "Not until they're all out," Tae grunted. He felt something tear in his shoulder. Pain shot down his arm. He kept pushing. Wu's team carried the last children through. 8 minutes Tai held that bulkhead open. 8 minutes that felt like forever. When the last Velothi child was safe, he finally let go and collapsed. The section exploded behind him as his team dragged him to safety. Hours later, every single Velothi had been transferred to the human ships. 12,000 lives saved. The colony ship finally broke apart completely, but its people were safe. In the medical bay, Hana worked on Tai's injuries. Severe muscle tears, stress fractures in his ribs, radiation exposure. He would survive, but he would never be the same. 12,000, Tae whispered, fighting through the pain medication. "We saved 12,000. "Yes," Hana said, tears running down her face. "We saved them all." Word of the rescue spread through the Galactic Coalition within hours. The monsters from the Death World had done the impossible. They had saved the most fragile species in the galaxy without harming a single one of them. The video played across every screen in the Galactic Coalition. Billions of beings watched humans moving through the dying Velothi ship with impossible gentleness. They saw Dr. Hanako crying as she saved a Velothi infant, her hands shaking as she worked the remote medical equipment. They saw Lieutenant Wu Dai carrying a Velothi elder through a radiation storm, his body taking damage that would have killed the elder instantly. They saw Captain Tae Bin holding open the collapsing bulkhead, broken and bleeding, refusing to stop until every child was safe. The footage changed everything. The monsters from the Death World weren't monsters at all. They were protectors. They were heroes. They were beings who would suffer unimaginable pain to save others. Ambassador Sung Hai stood before the Coalition Council 3 weeks after the rescue. She was an older woman with sharp eyes and a gentle voice. She had spent 30 years in diplomatic service and knew how to read a room. Right now, the room was confused and ashamed. The Valathi rescue revealed something important, Sung Hai said calmly. The Coalition has built a civilization that can only help those who are already strong. Your ships are designed for average species. Your medical systems work for standard biology. Your space stations accommodate common needs. But what about those who don't fit the average? What about the vulnerable? A council member from Telos, a world of strong gravity and harsh conditions, spoke up. The Coalition has always helped those in need. Has it? Sung Hae pulled up data on her screen. The Pyoki are aquatic beings who cannot survive in standard Coalition vessels. When was the last time a Coalition ship visited their homeworld? The Shrikes are avian species from a high-oxygen world. They suffocate in Coalition standard atmospheres. How many Shrikes serve in Coalition positions? The Velen are light-sensitive beings. Your stations are too bright for them. They've been isolated for generations because you never thought to dim the lights. The council chamber was silent. We propose the Sanctuary Initiative, Sung Hai continued. A human-led program to help vulnerable species. We will design vessels that can accommodate fragile beings. We will train teams in emergency rescue for species with special needs. We will create safe havens where the vulnerable can thrive. Why would humans do this? Asked another council member. What do you gain? Sung Hai smiled sadly. On Earth, humans have a saying. We judge a civilization by how it treats its most vulnerable members. We don't want anything except the chance to help. The council voted to approve the Sanctuary Initiative. Not everyone was happy about it. War Master Croth of the Drex Imperium stood in his command center and watched the council vote with disgust. The Drex were a militaristic species who believed in strength above all else. They had built their power through conquest and intimidation. They saw compassion as weakness. The humans are fools, Croth said to his advisors. They waste resources on the useless and weak. This will be their downfall. The Coalition seems impressed by their rescue, one advisor noted carefully. The Coalition is soft, Croth snapped. They admire the humans now, but they will grow to fear them. Mark my words, within a year, the humans will dominate the council through these displays of mercy, and we will be ready to stop them. But Croth was wrong about what would happen next. The humans didn't seek domination. They sought something much simpler and much more difficult. They wanted to help. The first sanctuary station opened above Earth's moon 6 months after the Valathi rescue. It was unlike any coalition structure. Some sections had ultra-low gravity for fragile species. Others had high oxygen atmospheres for the Shrikes. Aquatic zones existed for the Pyoki. Light-controlled areas welcomed the Velen. Dr. Hana Ko worked herself to exhaustion training coalition doctors in emergency medicine for vulnerable species. She showed them how to think creatively, how to adapt, how to improvise when standard procedures failed. Human medicine developed in chaos, she explained to a class of alien doctors. We dealt with injuries from falls, attacks, accidents, diseases. We learned to stabilize patients in impossible conditions. We learned that every life is worth fighting for, no matter how difficult the fight. Kai Min, a human engineer, revolutionized coalition vessel design. He created hybrid ships that could adjust their internal environments for different species. A single ship could now transport Valathi, Pyoki, and standard coalition species safely. The key is modular design, Kai explained to fascinated coalition engineers. Don't build one environment. Build a ship that can become many environments. Humans learned this from living on a world with every possible climate. We built for diversity. Young Eun became famous across the coalition as a paramedic who specialized in vulnerable species emergency care. She had trained in the worst conditions Earth could offer and now used that training to save alien lives. Her motto was simple: Everyone deserves a chance. But not everyone who needed help was ready to accept it. The humans discovered this when they tried to help a group of mothfolk refugees. The mothfolk were light-sensitive beings whose homeworld had been destroyed in a natural disaster. 10,000 survivors floated in refugee ships, too afraid to enter coalition stations where the bright lights would blind them. They had been there for 3 years, slowly running out of supplies because no one had thought to simply dim the lights. Na Yan was sent to communicate with them. She spent weeks learning their complex language, which involved wing movements and pheromone signals. Finally, she convinced them to trust humans. The mothfolk entered the sanctuary station and wept when they saw the carefully controlled lighting. For the first time in 3 years, they could see without pain. They could move freely. They could live. "Why?" their elder asked Na Yan through a translator. "Why do you care about us?" Na Yan thought about her answer carefully. "On Earth, humans struggled for millions of years. We nearly went extinct dozens of times. We survived because we learned to help each other. The strong protected the weak. The healthy cared for the sick. We learned that a civilization isn't strong because everyone in it is strong. A civilization is strong when it protects everyone in it, including the weak. But while humans built sanctuaries and saved lives, Captain Tay Bin struggled with his new reality. His injuries from the Valathi rescue had ended his field career. He could walk, but running was impossible. He could lift things, but heavy labor caused pain. He would never command a ship in emergency operations again. Hana visited him in his rehabilitation center. "How are you feeling?" "Useless," Tay admitted. "I'm sitting here while others do the work." "You're not useless," Hana said firmly. "Sunghai wants you to direct the Sanctuary Initiative. She says your experience and judgment are needed to guide policy. The people in the field need someone who understands what they're facing." "I'm not a politician." "You're a protector," Hana corrected. "And these vulnerable species need protection." "Who better to organize that protection than someone who literally broke his body to save children?" Tay looked at her and saw the exhaustion in her eyes. She had been working 20-hour days for 6 months. "When was the last time you slept?" "Sleep is for people who aren't training the entire coalition in emergency medicine," Hana joked weakly. "That's not sustainable." "None of this is sustainable," Hana said quietly. "But we're doing it anyway because it matters, because they matter, all of them." Lieutenant Wu Day, meanwhile, was dealing with his own problems. The radiation exposure from the Valathi rescue had left him sick. His doctors said he had maybe 5 years before the damage became critical. He spent those years training coalition officers in protection tactics. "Being strong doesn't mean being brutal," he told his students. "It means being controlled. It means using your strength to shield others, not to dominate them. Any fool can break things. It takes wisdom to protect them." The Sanctuary Initiative grew rapidly. More stations opened, more ships launched, more lives were saved. And the Galactic Coalition began to understand that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their durability or their speed or their toughness. It was their capacity to care. War Master Croth watched the latest news about human rescue operations with growing anger. The humans were everywhere now. They had ships in every sector. They had influence in every council meeting. Species that had once feared the Deathworlders now loved them. It was disgusting. "They're making us look weak," Croth told his chief engineer, a cunning Drex named Vexor. "Every time they save some pathetic species, the Coalition praises them. Meanwhile, the Drex Imperium, which has kept order for 1,000 years, is called brutal and outdated." "The humans have changed the conversation," Vexor agreed. "Compassion is now valued more than strength." Croth slammed his fist on the table. "We need to discredit them. Show the Coalition that human methods are reckless and dangerous. Show that their compassion is just arrogance in disguise." "What did you have in mind?" Vexor asked carefully. We create a crisis, Croth said with a cruel smile. A rescue scenario that looks possible but is actually impossible. The humans will rush in like fools, and they will fail publicly. The Coalition will see them for what they really are. Reckless Deathworlders playing hero. And if they succeed, they won't, Croth said confidently. We'll make sure of that. The plan was simple and evil. A Pioki refugee station orbited a hostile planet in a remote sector. 45,000 Pioki lived there in relative safety. The Drex secretly sabotaged the station's life support systems, making it look like natural system failures. Then they sent a distress signal claiming the station was in a location it wasn't, inside a dark matter storm. Dark matter storms disrupted all sensors and shields. Coalition ships avoided them completely. But the distress signal said 45,000 Pioki would die in hours, and the Drex calculated that humans would attempt a rescue anyway. Either the humans would die in the storm, discrediting their methods, or they would realize it was impossible and refuse to go, showing that their compassion had limits. Either way, the Drex won. The human ship Sanctuary received the distress call first. Captain Jin Hawk sat in his command chair and read the report with growing concern. Dr. Hanako stood beside him, her face pale. 45,000 Pioki, Hana whispered. All of them will drown when the aquatic habitats fail. Na Yan looked up from her communication station. Captain, this doesn't make sense. The station's last reported position was in Sector 47. This distress signal places it in Sector 49, inside the Thalax dark matter storm. Could they have drifted? Jin Hawk asked. Not that far, not that fast, Na Yan replied. And the storm disrupts all sensors. We won't be able to navigate normally. Young Yun, the ship's chief medical officer, checked the data. If the life support is failing as reported, those Pioki have maybe 6 hours. Standard Coalition rescue protocols would take days to safely navigate around the storm. Jin Hawk looked at his crew. So we go through it. Captain, it could be a trap, Na Yan warned. This whole scenario is suspicious. Suspicious or not, 45,000 people are dying, Jin Hawk said firmly. We're the only ship that can reach them in time. We go. The Sanctuary entered the dark matter storm, and immediately everything went wrong. Sensors showed nothing but static. Navigation systems failed. Communication was impossible. They were flying blind through a region of space that could tear them apart at any moment. Na Yan, can you get us through this? Jin Hawk asked. Na Yan stared at her useless instruments. Then she started listening. She analyzed the patterns of interference, the way signals degraded, the subtle variations in the static. The communication degradation has patterns, she said slowly. I can use those patterns to estimate direction and distance. It's not precise, but it's something. Young Yun contributed her own insight. The distress signal is weakest in certain frequency ranges. Those ranges correspond to interference caused by water vapor. If I'm right, the station's aquatic leaks are creating a trail we can follow. Jin Hawk smiled grimly. This was what humans did best. They improvised. Do it. For 12 hours, they navigated through the storm using nothing but signal analysis and educated guesses. Jin Hawk flew the ship by feel, sensing the vessel's responses like extensions of his own body. When instruments said go left, but his instincts said go right, he trusted his instincts. They found the station, but the situation was even worse than reported. Life support wasn't just failing, it had been deliberately sabotaged. 47 habitat modules were collapsing in cascading patterns. This was intentional, Hana said, studying the damage patterns. Someone did this on purpose. Why? Young Yun asked, horrified. To make us fail, Jin Hawk realized. To prove that human methods don't work. Well, we're not going to fail. The rescue operation began. The Sanctuary didn't have enough internal capacity for 45,000 aquatic beings, So the humans improvised. They dumped the ship's water reserves into cargo bays, creating temporary aquatic environments. They vented their own oxygen to pressurize failing Pyoki habitats. They manually carried Pyoki through vacuum corridors in sealed emergency suits when transport systems failed. Young Yoon performed surgery on a dying Pyoki elder, using techniques she had adapted from Earth's deep-sea medicine. She worked for 96 hours straight, her hands steady even as exhaustion made her vision blur. Meanwhile, Na Yeon discovered evidence of the Drek's sabotage in the station's system logs. She quietly copied everything and sent it to Lieutenant Wu Dae, who was now working as an intelligence officer despite his illness. Wu Dae studied the evidence and made a plan. While the rescue continued, he led a team to secure the proof. They found Drek's operatives still on the station, monitoring the crisis they had created. The confrontation was tense. The Drek's operatives were armed and ready to destroy the evidence. Wu Dae's team was exhausted from rescue operations, but humans had one advantage. They could fight in conditions that would kill most species. When the Dreks tried to escape through a damaged section that was rapidly losing atmosphere, Wu Dae's team followed. They endured explosive decompression and toxic atmosphere leaks. They used non-lethal tactics, refusing to kill even their enemies. Within an hour, they had captured all the saboteurs and secured all the evidence. The cost was high. The crew suffered from severe oxygen deprivation because they had given up their reserves for the Pyoki. They endured radiation exposure and extreme hypothermia from giving up their environmental resources. Young Yoon collapsed after her 96-hour surgery marathon, but they saved all 45,000 Pyoki. And they had proof of the Drek's conspiracy. When the sanctuary emerged from the dark matter storm, battered but successful, they transmitted everything to Coalition Command. The evidence was overwhelming. The Drek's Imperium had deliberately endangered 45,000 innocent lives to discredit humanity. The Coalition's response was swift. The Drek's Imperium faced severe sanctions. War Master Croth was removed from power and placed under arrest. The Dreks lost their seat on several important councils. But more importantly, the galaxy witnessed something unprecedented. A species from a death world, beings who could dominate through strength, had chosen instead to protect the weak, even when that protection came at tremendous cost. They had endured pain that would break other species, not for conquest or glory, but because they believed every life mattered. They had refused to kill even their enemies, capturing the saboteurs alive despite how much easier it would have been to just eliminate them. Captain Jin Hak addressed the Coalition Council from his hospital bed, still recovering from oxygen deprivation. "We knew it might be a trap. We went anyway. Not because we're brave or special. We went because 45,000 people needed help, and we could provide it. That's all. That's what the Sanctuary Initiative is about. Helping those who need help, regardless of the cost to ourselves." Ambassador Sung Hai stood before the council with tears in her eyes. The Drek's Imperium tried to prove that compassion is weakness. Instead, they proved that compassion is the hardest and strongest choice anyone can make. They proved that humanity, for all our death world origins, has learned something that many stronger species have not. We've learned that true strength isn't the ability to harm. It's the capacity to endure harm so that others may live. The Council voted unanimously to expand the Sanctuary Initiative. More ships, more stations, more resources. The vulnerable species of the galaxy would never be abandoned again. In his cell, War Master Croth raged at his defeat. He had tried to destroy the humans through their compassion and had only made them stronger. He didn't understand and probably never would. Compassion wasn't a weakness to exploit. It was a strength beyond his comprehension. 2 years after the Pyoki rescue, Captain Tae Bin stood in the observation deck of Sanctuary Station Prime and watched ships arrive from across the galaxy. Each vessel carried refugees, vulnerable species seeking safety, or volunteers coming to help. The station orbited Earth's moon, a symbol of humanity's commitment to protecting others. Tai walked with a cane now. His injuries from the Valathi rescue had healed as much as they ever would. He would never command a ship in the field again, but he had found a different purpose. As director of the Sanctuary Initiative, he guided policy and strategy for the largest humanitarian organization in galactic history. Impressive, isn't it? Ambassador Sung Hae joined him at the window. She looked older now, tired from constant work, but her eyes still held that sharp intelligence. 73 sanctuary stations operating across the galaxy, Tae said. 300 specialized rescue ships, medical facilities on 200 worlds. I never imagined it would grow this big. You started this, Sung Hae reminded him. When you volunteered to save the Valathi, you showed the galaxy what was possible. We all did it together, Sung Hae smiled. That's very human of you, sharing credit, but it's true. Your crew, Jin Hak's crew, all the volunteers who came after. You've changed the galaxy's entire understanding of what civilization means. A ship docked at the station, and Tae watched the passengers disembark. Valathi, Pioki, Mothfolk, Shrikes, and dozens of other species walked together through corridors designed for their comfort and safety. Coalition species who had once seemed incompatible now lived and worked side by side. Dr. Hana Ko appeared on the observation deck, carrying a datapad as always. She had aged visibly in 2 years. The constant stress and work had left lines on her face, but her passion for helping others hadn't dimmed. The Xenobiology Institute graduated its first class today, Hana announced. 200 doctors from 70 different species, all trained in emergency medicine for vulnerable populations. How many of them are human? Tae asked. Only 30, Hana said with satisfaction. The rest are coalition species who wanted to learn our methods. They're spreading across the galaxy now, taking what we taught them and making it better. That's what I hoped for. You're not going to stop working yourself to death, are you? Tae asked gently. Hana laughed. Probably not. There's too much to do, but I'm not alone anymore. I have help. Good help. Through the window, they could see another ship approaching, the Promise Keeper, flagship of the Sanctuary Fleet, commanded by Captain Jin Hak. The vessel was enormous, designed to handle multiple rescue operations simultaneously. Jin Hak's face appeared on Tai's communication device. Director, we just finished evacuating a Velen colony from a dying star system. 3,000 refugees all safe. We're bringing them to Station 7. Good work, Captain, Tae replied. How's your crew holding up? Exhausted and proud, Jin Hak said with his characteristic gruff humor. Same as always. We've trained 12 new crews this month, young officers from species I've never even heard of, all wanting to learn how to do what we do. The legend spreads, Sung Hae observed. After Jin Hak signed off, Tae thought about all the people who had made this possible. Lieutenant Wu Day had passed away 6 months ago, his radiation sickness finally claiming him. But before he died, he had trained thousands of coalition officers in his methods. His philosophy of strength through protection had become standard teaching in coalition military academies. Nayeon now served as the primary liaison between humanity and vulnerable species. Her gift for understanding alien communication had helped bridge countless cultural gaps. She had personally negotiated peace agreements, trade deals, and refugee placements that everyone said were impossible. Kai Min's hybrid vessel designs had revolutionized space travel. Coalition engineers had taken his modular concepts and created ships that could accommodate any species safely. Travel restrictions that had lasted for centuries were suddenly lifted. Species that had been isolated could now explore the galaxy. Young Yun had become famous across known space as the doctor who never gave up. She taught emergency medicine at the Xenobiology Institute, training new generations to face impossible situations with creativity and courage. The Valathi are here, someone announced over the station's communication system. They're requesting permission to meet with Director Tae. Tay felt his chest tighten with emotion. Send them to conference room 3. A group of Velothi entered the room, their crystalline bodies catching the light beautifully. Leading them was a young Velothi scientist whose life Hana had saved during the original rescue. The Velothi had grown and changed, but Tai recognized the grateful look in its multifaceted eyes. Director Tay Bin, the young Velothi said through a translator. I am researcher Vel Thana. You saved my life when I was a child. Dr. Ko operated on me for 6 hours to repair damage from the failing life support. I remember, Hana said softly. She had been invited to join the meeting. I became a xenobiologist because of you, Vel Thana continued. I wanted to help others as you helped me. Now I work at the Xenobiology Institute, studying how to improve medical care for vulnerable species. We brought something for you, another Velothi elder said. A gift from our people. They unveiled a monument made from the most precious Velothi crystal. It showed Captain Tay Bin holding open the collapsing bulkhead, with Velothi children passing beneath his outstretched arms. The detail was perfect, capturing the pain and determination on Tay's face. The inscription was carved in human, Velothi, and Coalition standard languages. Strength is not the ability to harm, but the capacity to endure harm so others may live. The Deathworlders taught us this. We will never forget. Tay felt tears burning in his eyes. Hana was openly crying. Even Sung Hai had to look away for a moment. We don't deserve this, Tay said quietly. You deserve more than we could ever give, Velthana replied. You saved us when no one else could. You protected us when no one else would. You taught the galaxy that being from a harsh world doesn't make you harsh. It can make you kind. Later that evening, Tay stood alone in the observation deck watching the ships come and go. He thought about how far humanity had come. 3 years ago, they were feared as monsters from a nightmare world. Now they were trusted as protectors and friends. Dr. Hana Ko joined him again, 2 cups of tea in her hands. She gave one to Tay and stood beside him in comfortable silence. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if we hadn't volunteered to save the Velothi? Hana asked. Every day, Tay admitted. 12,000 people would have died. The galaxy would still see us as monsters. Vulnerable species would still be isolated and afraid. And millions more would have died in the years since, Hana added. Every rescue we've done, every life we've saved, it all started with that first decision, your decision. Our decision, Tay corrected. You designed the clean rooms. Wu held the line. Na Yeon calmed the terrified. Jin Hak brought supplies. We all did it together. Hana smiled. You know what I've learned in these 2 years? Earth made us tough because Earth was trying to kill us every day. We evolved to survive the nightmare. But somewhere in that evolution, we learned something more important than survival. We learned that the strong protect the weak, that survival means helping each other, that civilization isn't about being powerful. It's about using whatever power you have to shield those who have none. We're still learning, Tay said. Every rescue teaches us something new. Every species we help shows us a different way to care. Through the window, they watched a Pioki family swim past in one of the station's aquatic corridors. Nearby, Velothi artists created crystal sculptures in a low-gravity studio. Mothfolk flew through dimly lit gardens. Shrikes soared in high-oxygen atriums. Species that should never have been able to coexist now lived together in harmony, protected by humans who refused to let vulnerability mean death. They used to call us Deathworlders like it was a curse, Hana said quietly. Maybe it was, Tay replied. Earth was a nightmare. But nightmares teach you to be brave. They teach you to endure. They teach you that when darkness comes, someone has to stand and fight so others can hide. We clawed our way up from the nightmare world, not to dominate the stars, but to make sure no one has to face their nightmares alone. A young human officer approached them nervously. "Director, Ambassador, sorry to interrupt. We just received 7 new distress calls. Vulnerable species in crisis across 3 sectors." Tai and Hana looked at each other and smiled. The work never ended. There was always someone who needed help, always someone in danger, always someone vulnerable who deserved protection. "Alert the sanctuary fleet," Tai ordered. "Get our rescue teams ready. Coordinate with Coalition Command. We're going to save them all." As the officer hurried away to carry out orders, Tai looked back at the monument the Valathi had given him. The crystal captain holding back the collapsing bulkhead so children could escape. That was what it meant to be human. That was what it meant to be from a death world. Not to conquer, not to dominate, but to endure so others didn't have to. To suffer so others could be safe. To face the nightmare so others could dream. The galaxy had 847 species now, and one of them, the species from the Class 12 death world called Earth, had taught all the others the most important lesson any civilization could learn. That true strength isn't measured by what you can destroy. It's measured by what you're willing to sacrifice to protect.